Hello everyone, it's Michael here and welcome to my very first English speaking video on this channel. If you're a long-time subscriber, you probably know me for my Civilization game soundtrack piano arrangements. But today I wanted to try something new. I've never done any reviews or discussion videos about Civilization or about music in general. In fact, this is my first public appearance where I speak English, so as you can probably already tell, I'm not a native English speaker, so if I mispronounce something or if I make mistakes, I apologize in advance. In this video, I would like to share my initial impressions of the Civilization 7 soundtrack and specifically focus on the Antiquity age. And since we have only 10 civilizations in the Antiquity age, I figured it's kind of an obvious pick to do this like in a top 10 format video. From my least favorite to my absolute favorite soundtrack. I'm sure I will do more videos like this in the future, so I will cover Exploration Age, I will cover Modern Age, maybe I even do a video for the ambient themes. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and more importantly, leave a comment. As I said, I've never done anything like this before, so your suggestions, your comments will greatly help me to improve myself in the future videos. Also, I would like to emphasize that this video is purely my opinion. I'm sure that my number 10 is someone's number 1 and vice versa, and that's beautiful thing about music. We can all have different opinions, and I'm curious to know your lists, so please write down in the comments. I'm curious to check them out. Finally, before we begin our discussion, I would like to say that I have my YouTube sponsorship program on the channel enabled, finally, and if you want to become a sponsor and financially support me, this is kind of the easiest way to do this, just in a few clicks. Right now there are no sponsors, but you can become the first one, so please check out if you're interested in this, in some extra stuff from me. I would really appreciate any support because this helps the channel immensely to make more content, more videos. So guys, without further ado, let's begin our discussion. Number 10 I have the Mississippians, and I have to say that even though it's my least favorite track from the Antiquity age, I still think it's very well produced and it's a good track. It's just the quality of all the others are just simply better. This track is what you can expect from a Native American music. It has this simple percussion beat and two variations of the vocal melody. So in this case, I think it's kind of like an ambient theme. So it's great when you start the game and it sets you in the mood. But when you hear this track for 5, 6, 7 times, it kind of gets boring and repetitive. So that's the reason why I put it in the 10th place. It's still not a bad track, but it's just very generic. Egypt is kind of a special one for me because it was the first piano cover that I did for Civilization 7. I believe it was back in September when they announced that Egypt is gonna be in the game, and they published the soundtrack, and I did it quickly. I did it in like 2 or 3 hours. It was so fast, even for me. But today, after listening to the whole soundtrack, Egyptian theme feels a little bit undercooked. And it's kind of underwhelming considering that Egypt is one of the most important civilizations in our history, and we get this simple generic campfire song. I think they could have done better with this, especially right now we don't have this progression system like we had in Civilization 6, where we start with a simple arrangement in the ancient era and it evolves to much more complex and rich composition in the industrial and atomic era. In Civilization 7 we have only one age, and I expected that since we have only one standalone age for a civilization, that we will get a kind of much more interesting and nuanced compositions. But to be fair, it's just my take because I'm a musician and I always want to hear something new each time. but I understand that for a general audience and for the game specifically, composers have a different task. They need to compose music that will immerse players into the game. And in that regard, I guess this track does its job very well. It has all the right instruments, so it's not a bad music, it's just I expected something much more complex from this. But still, I think it's a great ninth place in my list. At number 8 I have Persia, and Persia is decent. It has this very rich, warm atmosphere, and I can instantly imagine myself being in that time period while listening to it. Still, I have this one gripe with this track. It's just very similar to Civilization 6. I don't know if they based this on the same exact song as Civilization 6, but it feels very similar. If you know more information about it, please let me know in the comments. But right now, Persia is my number 8. At number 7 I have Axum, and Axum also has a very solid theme. Just recently I made a piano arrangement for it, so if you're interested you can check it out. And this composition is very similar to Civilization 6 Ethiopia, and that's to be expected because they kind of share the same territory, culture, and because music is a very important part of culture, so I appreciate that while it definitely has a little bit of Ethiopia in it, it still feels like a standalone composition. Especially the second half of this track is very much a different vibe than Ethiopia, and I really enjoy it. I think it's a solid 7th place. And also I hope they add Ethiopia later down the line in Civilization 7, because if they do the same as they did in Civilization 6, well, I will be really happy. Because Civilization 6 had an amazing Ethiopian main theme and ambient themes, so hopefully we get something like this in Civilization 7. At number 6 I have Greece, and Greece has finally moved away from the legendary epitaph of Seikilos, which was the main inspiration behind Civilization 5 and Civilization 6 Greek soundtracks. And now we have the second Delphic hymn to Apollo as our main song for Greece in Civilization 7. And I have to say I really like it. It starts a little bit boring, but when the vocals kick in, it really transforms the composition. I strongly believe that vocals enhance this track very much. It is also a very complex composition. It has a lot of various rhythmic patterns and various time signatures. It's like priests of Temple of Apollo tried to impress their god with their music. So it's not one of my favorites, but I can see the vision behind this track and I really respect it. Also, if you would like to see how I adapted this to piano, my piano cover for Greece is already finished and you can see it on the channel right now. At number 5 I have Han China, and Chinese tracks, they never disappoint. I really enjoyed Civilization 5's Chinese theme, and Civilization 6 was also very good. And now we have an opportunity to have 3 tracks for each age to represent different time periods for China. I think that composers represented the Antiquity China really well with this composition. It has multiple traditional, very traditional instruments for China. some instruments I've never heard before. Like for example, for me the standout element in the composition was the instrument which I believe is called Jen. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I think that my Slavic accent is enough for this video, so I won't try to impress you with my Chinese. But this is a Chinese mouse-borne instrument. It sounds really cool, and the way the melody shifts between these traditional instruments, it's fantastic and fascinating to me. And the only reason why this track is on my 5th spot is just because the tracks that are above it have some unique qualities that I enjoy more. So it's a matter of personal preference, and to be honest, I can name you a different list every day. At one point I had Han on my 2nd place, so I guess it's not final in terms of the ranking, because it's just my initial impressions. The game is still very fresh and soundtrack is still very fresh. Hopefully I will do this again maybe 1 year later, and we will compare my list and see if maybe Han theme will be high on my list or lower on my list. So we'll see. But for now, for today, I guess that it's a solid middle ground, and I'm happy with the 5th place for Han's China. At number 4 I have Kmai, and oh my god, this was a tough one to rank because it's such a unique track. I'd say it's one of the most distinctive pieces in the game, and at first I didn't like it at all. Actually, I had it in 10th place on my list. But before I started recording this video, I gave it another listen, and I have to say, it kind of grew on me. And I think the reason why it was so low on my list is just because I was so attached to Civilization 6 version of Kmai, which had a very different vibe to it. It was fast-paced, joyous, delightful, and easy to understand. So I guess I wasn't fully prepared for this very different approach that they took in Civilization 7. The composition is very unusual, and that's what I love about Civilization games. I learn something new each time I play, or even just listen to the soundtrack. So if I ranked this purely on my personal taste, it'd probably be somewhere in the near 7th or 6th place, but I'm placing it higher at 4th place to highlight its uniqueness within the overall setlist, because for me this one definitely stands out. Now that we have only 3 tracks to rank, and if you are still listening, please leave a like to this video. It really helps, and also a lot of you who are watching are not subscribed, so if you enjoy what I'm doing, or at least trying to do, please consider subscribing. And now let's go to my top 3. Now, I wasn't a huge fan of the Rome theme in Civilization 6, especially the industrial and atomic versions. For me, they had too much fanfare, and those trumpets were really just annoying. But what we got in Civilization 7? A total pleasant surprise. This track slaps, it's rich, beautifully played, and it genuinely feels like you're walking through the streets of ancient Rome, looking at all the amazing, stunning architecture. 2 things that stood out the most were the vocals and this deep instrument. I think it's kind of a brass instrument, I don't know the name of it, but for me it sounded like a war cry before battle. So I think this is my favorite European theme from the Antiquity age right now, and I'm honestly shocked that it is Rome. Solid 3rd place in the list. second favorite soundtrack in the Antiquity age and one of my favorites in the entire game is Maya. And guys, what an amazing track this is. I listen to it at least once a day and it never gets boring. It just pumps me up every time I listen to it, and especially when I play the game, it always brings me joy when I play with Maya or when I play against Maya. It's just amazing. I love this constant beat it has, and the variety of traditional instruments and the way they're placed sonically. When I listen through my headphones, it just feels like I'm in the jungle, surrounded by this living, breathing world around me. It really feels like I'm somewhere in the Chichen Itza, about to be sacrificed. So, I don't know, this track has suspense, it has tradition, it has sense of wonder. I'd happily listen to a 10-hour version of this beauty, to be honest. I really enjoyed this, and there is only one track that I enjoyed more. And you probably already know what the track it is. Antiquity age is Maurya, India, and I remember back in October or September hearing snippets of this theme during Firaxis developer stream when they talked about India, and I remember that this track was playing in the background and I immediately wanted to hear more. And when they released the full version, I don't know how to describe the feeling other than being enchanted by it. You can feel how much care and work went into this track. It's one of the longest in the game, but I never noticed its length. And I'm not super familiar with the inspirations behind it. I'm not super familiar in Indian history in general. But I believe it's based on a few actual mantras from that time period, which is super cool. I really enjoyed how they tied everything together. It's just a brilliant piece of music. So guys, that's it. This is my top 10 favorite Antiquity Age soundtrack from Civilization 7. It was a super fun experience for me, and I hope you stuck around until the end. If you did, please drop a comment below letting me know. And feel free to share your own top 10 list for the Antiquity Age soundtrack if you've got one. And as I mentioned before, this is only part 1. In the next video, we'll dive into the Exploration Age, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching, and